Hello, everyone, and welcome to our week 3 virtual lecture for Psychology of Play. We'll be here today for about 2 hours. So I wanted to start right on time so we can make sure that we finish by 4 o'clock um, in the afternoon. So my name is Stephanie Fetra, and I'm one of the instructors for Psychology of Play. I have a master's degree in mental health counseling, and I've been here at Full Sail for about 6 years now. So it's nice to see. Let's see, we have 22 people here. Feel free to talk to each other and myself in the chat box. If you have any questions, you can also raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can talk on the microphone. We're actually going to be doing a little activity later where you can use your microphone and talk if you'd like. So keep that in mind if you have a headset or something else that you would like to use. All right, so here's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about motivation first, then moving into gamification. Then we're going to be talking about different types of play in the workplace and talk about some examples of companies that are using this idea. Then we're going to move on to talking about conflict and conflict resolution and do a little activity to learn your conflict management style. So hopefully we'll have some fun, and the more you guys participate, the more fun and the faster this goes by. So I hope that we can get some good participation today. So let's start out in talking about Daniel Pink. So if you've done the reading, you've heard of this guy. He basically wrote this book called A Whole New Mind. And he's an American author, and he's written books about business, work, management, but he really, really has affinity for behavioral science and psychology, which is why we like him. And he basically explains that we're living in a time when traits like imagination and creativity are really what is most important in the business world. That wasn't necessarily what it used to be, right? Now we're in what's called the conceptual age, because if you think about it, in the past, machines have kind of replaced our bodies in doing certain types of jobs. We don't have to have such manual labor. And then software is replacing our left brains by doing lots of sequential work and data crunching and all that stuff. So what the business world is really looking for right now are people that have traits like imagination and creativity. These are things that companies are looking for. Inventiveness, empathy, big picture thinking. And that's basically what he talks about in his book, A Whole New Mind. Definitely check it out if that's something that you're interested in. But he also talks about motivation and what motivates us now that we're in this conceptual age. And he says that we're not as predictable as you might think. And he talks about the puzzle of motivation. And he brings up the point that we may think that giving out money or bonuses in a work environment for employee contributions or accomplishments would encourage people to work harder towards their goals and accomplishments, but that's not necessarily the case. So there's basically a misconception that we are going to talk about some examples of research that's been done about this. So intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. Before I explain to you what this is, does anyone want to raise their hand or type in the chat box, what is intrinsic motivation? Does anyone know what that means? Probably something you've heard before. Motivation that is intrinsic. Jordan says internal versus external motivation. Yeah, that's kind of a good shortcut with the I and the E there, right? Internal, intrinsic, extrinsic, external. So intrinsic motivation would be doing an activity for its inherent satisfaction or enjoyment rather than for some type of external consequence. So can anyone think of an example of something that would be intrinsically motivating? Play. Yeah, Jordan. He's on the ball today. And then we have extrinsic motivation, right, which is doing something because it leads to a separable outcome or reward. So these are things that could sometimes be school, like when you have to get grades and a degree, right? That's some type of outcome or reward. But let's talk about this for a minute in terms of what you What motivates you? So I want you to either write down or just think about one thing that motivates you. And then once you have that thing in your mind, I want you to determine if it's intrinsic or extrinsic. Okay, so does anyone have an example? Something that motivates you, and is it intrinsic or extrinsic? Okay, Kayana, I hope I said that right, says 9 to 5 work hours every day. Okay, so a job would be something that motivates you, going to work. But what about going to work motivates you? Brianna says money, and it's extrinsic. Okay, so going to a job, you make money. That's obviously an extrinsic goal. But obviously, there's some people that would say, my job's a motivator for me, but it's intrinsic because I get to do what I love, right? So it depends on the person. Cheyenne says playing music motivates her, and that's intrinsic. Yeah, definitely something internal from within that makes you enjoy that activity. Daquan says it makes me want to do better for not only myself but those around me who struggle every day with inner and outer influences. Okay, so it is true. It's not all or nothing, right? Obviously, you could have a job that you really enjoy, but yeah, that extrinsic motivator, the external motivator of money and a paycheck at the end of the week is definitely gonna be a part of it, right? So what do you think? Are most people motivated by intrinsic or extrinsic factors? Brianna says making music people would like, and it's intrinsic. Yeah, that's a good example. Allison says my undying curiosity motivates me to learn, and it's intrinsic. Okay, curiosity. Awesome. Andrew says extrinsic because it benefits them in some way. Okay. And what do you mean by benefit? Because isn't it possible that if you're intrinsically motivated to something, the benefit would be like you feel really good about yourself, or you feel fulfilled, or you feel happy? Brianna says most people are motivated by extrinsic factor. Stefan says, I think most people are extrinsically motivated, but intrinsic motivation provides better results. Ah, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Okay. So it's clear that we are motivated by both of these things. However, as we say in number 4, which works best, extrinsic or intrinsic motivation, right? So I think Stefan brings up a better point, or a good point, which is that what about results? What works the best? So let's talk about that. And how we're going to talk about that is by talking about the candle problem to give us an example. So the candle problem was an experiment done by psychologist Carl Dunker, and participants were asked, well, actually, first, let me get a poll from you guys so I can see where you're at. Hold on a second. Okay, so you should see a poll come up. Do you think monetary rewards make people work harder? Harder. Okay, so you can go ahead and vote on the poll. Let me launch it, sorry. I'll give you guys a little time to do that before we go into the candle problem, because this is all related. And you can go ahead and vote directly on the poll and not in the chat box, or else it won't calculate your vote. So I have you guys at 58% of you have voted. So if you haven't voted, go ahead and do that now. All right, we're at 81%. We might not get every single person to vote. So let me go ahead and close the poll. So 81% of you 80 voted in here, and 81% of you believe that yes, monetary rewards make you work harder, and 19% say no. Okay, so now just have that in the back of your mind while we're talking about the candle problem. Okay. All right. So what they were tasked to do during the psychological experiment is fixing a lit candle on a wall in a way so that the candle wax won't drip onto the table below. And all they had were this matches, a box of thumbtacks, and a candle. Okay. So, does anyone know how this problem is solved? Okay, if you can type in the chat box or raise your hand. If you've watched the video in the readings, you know the answer. How would you solve this problem? Dump out the tacks. Yeah, fix the candle to the wall, which means get the candle to be upright. Stick the box on the wall, light the candle in the box. Yeah, you stick the box on the wall with the tacks. Exactly, Andrew. Thank you. So, okay, this is the experiment. They basically gave them this problem to be solved, right? Now, of course, in the experiment, there's different groups, right? So each group has the same activity to do, okay? But then there's two groups, the low drive group and the high drive group. So the low drive group does not receive any money or compensation for completing this task. They're just given the supplies and they say, oh, we're just doing, an experiment on problem solving skills. They say, okay, here you go. Here's the activity. Then there's the high drive group. They were told that depending on how quickly they solved the problem, they could win money, and only the top 25% would win cash prizes. So that there were limited resources, not everyone was going to win money, so they had to be quick in order to solve the problem faster. So, in this situation, what do you guys think? Which group do you think solved the problem faster? The low drive group or the high drive group? Go ahead and vote directly in the poll. All right, if you haven't voted, go ahead and vote now. All right. 82%, close to what we had last time. So 30% of you believe no rewards, or I'm sorry, 70% believe that the group that got rewards worked harder. Okay. Pretty consistent with what you said about monetary rewards earlier. Well, guess what? The group that solved the problem faster was the low drive group. No reward. So only 30% of you got that idea right. Why do you think? Why do you think? Andrew, no pressure. Exactly. That's one of the reasons. Not stress, says Alexandra. Exactly. Jordan says no pressure to do well. Cheyenne says it's because of no extra pressure. Exactly. Okay. So what they found that was when they turned it into a competition for limited resources where only certain people would get money at the end, it created mild levels of stress in the subject. And when you're under stress, you have that fight or flight response. It takes over your brain and your body and basically shuts down the creative thinking and problem solving areas of the brain, which is in that prefrontal cortex. So this experiment shows that rewards can narrow our focus and restrict possibilities in these types of situations. Andrew says, and you end up overthinking a simple solution. Yes, okay. You guys are exactly right. So if you had this hypothetical situation where the person who creates the most innovative t-shirt design in this class, there's 30 of you in here, for psychology of play, will receive $1,000 cash. What do you think would happen in this type of situation? Only one person can win. Daquan says extreme competition. Stefan says some less than ideal designs. Brianna says all of our ideas would be rushed. Yeah, exactly. So you might end up creating something, Christopher. I would be $1,000 richer. Yeah, so it's possible that you might be less creative if that fight or flight response kicks in. Now, sometimes when that flight or flight response kicks in, Like when you're doing a test in school and it's timed, like the SATs or something like that, we might get stressed out. But there are people that a little bit of stress is good. So a little bit of stress sometimes can be helpful for us because that adrenaline kicks in and we're motivated, like we're going to do this. And then that competition side of you is like, okay, if that's your thing, but not everybody. So I'm not saying this is a black or white thinking here. We want to think about all the possibilities, but in general, this type of situation, the stress would kind of shut down your all your creative juices. So according to the candle problem, what would be the result? We just talked about that. Sorry. Okay. So let's move on to talking about what does motivate us. If it's not necessarily always external things like money and fame and rewards, right? What does it motivate us? Like what do the studies show at some time? Shamaya says it can motivate at times. Yeah, sometimes money can motivate us. That's no, where there's no question about that, right? But like we said, in the end game and in the long term, because money really kind of is a short term game, right? We get that paycheck, we see it, we're like, yes, we put it in the bank, and then a week later we forget about it until the next one, right? But what really motivates us and keeps us happy and fulfilled in the things that we do are these three elements of motivation. And here we're talking mostly about in a workplace environment or maybe school type thing. So Dan Pink talks about this in his book called Drive. So the secret to high performance is the drive to do things for their own sake. So this is what science is showing us. Number one, autonomy. People want to be self-directed. They don't want to be micromanaged. They want someone over their shoulder saying, this is what you need to do, this. Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? No, they want to do things and be trusted that they're going to get it done because that's what they want to do. Number two is they want mastery, which is basically saying we have the urge to get better at stuff that we like, that we find fun, and we want to be the best at it. So if you make music, you want to keep, making music so you can make that song better and better and better, right? And keep working on your craft, right? And then number three is purpose, right? So you want to feel like this means something. Like there's a reason that you guys are all here at Full Sail, right? You didn't choose a traditional college. You're probably following a creative passion, and you're motivated by that sense of purpose that passion gives you, right? You want recognition. You want to make a name for yourself. You want to share your music or art or computer animation or whatever it is with the world. And that's what makes coming to work better, right? Companies that are flourishing right now are those which have people that feel this sense of purpose. In the last session, you guys talked about that why factor. So my question to you is, did those things come in mind to you when you were picking out a career? Are you here just because what you want to do is going to make you a lot of money? Or Alexandra says, I'm here for the fun of it, right? The excitement of doing something that you enjoy, right? Or that autonomy. Number one, being a creator, being able to create something that is all your own, right? That kind of fits along with autonomy and mastery. Harmony says, I'm here because of my passion. I enjoy it. Alexandra says, I love being in school and learning new things. Caden says, I want to make things for people to enjoy. Yeah. So it sounds like you guys have thought about what your purpose is and why you're here. And that's something you want to keep in touch with as you go through your careers. Think back to these things that motivate you, because if it's just a paycheck or if it's just recognition or rewards, is that going to last for the long term? Allison says, my only motives are my curiosity and constant need for entertainment. Okay. And Fernando says, I'm here because I want to make a name for myself and creating a legacy. Awesome. So that's something to think about. Purpose. Keep that in mind. Frederick says, my family. Yeah, family is a great motivator. You want to make them proud of you. You want to show them your talent and your skills. Aubrey says, learning how to do something that makes me happy and that I can profit from. Yeah, so a little bit of intrinsic, a little bit of extrinsic. Taquan says, doing what I love. All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that you guys sound motivated. Keep that in mind because, you're in the beginning of your programs taking psychology of play. You kind of have a significant road ahead of you. So when you're feeling that lack of drive, that lack of motivation, maybe come back and remember what you talked about in this class and try to get in touch of what your purpose is. And because, sometimes it's going to get stressful here and you're going to be working on a project and you're going to be like, oh man, like this is a lot. And then think about, okay, I got to remember why I'm here and what kind of things can help me stay motivated. So, one thing that can also help motivated is having fun, which I think I've heard a lot in the chat box today. I've heard the word fun maybe at least 3 or 4 times already. Guess what? Fun is the easiest way to change people's behavior for the better. So think about it. How can you make an everyday activity more fun? Let's say doing the dishes. That's an everyday activity. You have dishes every day. How could you make doing dishes more fun? Jordan's on point, gamification. Gonna get to that in a minute. Exactly. Gamification. So what would be an example of a specific way you could turn doing dishes into a game, Allison? What could you do? Harmony says listening to music, doing it with family, joking around, blast music. Yeah. And we're like sometimes take turns or break as many dishes as possible, Jordan. Yeah, you might not want to race too much. Creating ways to organize the dishes differently than what you're normally accustomed to, says Daquan. Okay, yeah. So you guys got the idea. So let's check out a quick example of this. In your materials section of the control panel, there is a clip that says fun theory. So please click on that and watch it and then type done in the chat box when you're finished. All right, it looks like most of you guys are up from watching the video, but basically, I think someone said it wasn't working for them on their phone. It's in the materials section on your control panel. So it's actually on the GoToTraining platform if you're on your computer or on your app. Okay, so basically the video is, are more people going to take the stairs and get exercise if they make music when you step on them, or are people going to take the escalator and not, get exercise? Well, the study found that when things are fun, like going up the stairs, something you do, an everyday activity, that more people are likely to engage in that. So just making something fun, brightening up someone's day a little bit, is definitely an easy way to change people's behavior. People are being more healthy now because they're climbing the stairs because it's fun, right? So we shouldn't really be asking, how do I motivate people? We should be asking, how can I create conditions in which people will motivate themselves, right? So another example I have here, this is my daughter, like a year, I think this was like a year ago, but she was 3 and she was not eating her food. And I was like, all right, how can I make eating fun? Like, what do I got to do? And so she was obsessed with princesses and still is. So I got her this princess plate, and it has like a little path that she has to go through and eat everything in the little square in order to get to the end. And there's a little prize under the castle. So she gets excited to go through each little section and get to the end, and she can see her progress as she's going. How many more? Now she's like, oh, I have 2 more left, or I have 3 more to go. Um, so just a little way to make it somewhat fun and to not make mealtime stressful, and because then she would just like refuse to eat. So that works. Just a simple way to gamify something like eating, which sometimes for toddlers can be extremely difficult. Um, so let's watch another kind of fun video that Dan Pink did. Um, I have kids, so I always find videos with kids in them for some reason. But if you go to your material section and click on ice cream potty, you're going to be like, what the heck is that? But you'll see in a minute. So type done in the chat box when you're finished. All right, looks like you guys are done. Yeah, pretty unique idea, but I thought it was kind of cute and entertaining. Why not try something to make it fun not to pee in the pool, and then the kids are all happy and everyone's happy, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed that little example of gamification, changing behavior by making things enjoyable, right? So that's a very, it seems simple, but gamification is actually a pretty big buzzword right now, and there's a lot of research being done on just how to motivate people using these techniques. And it's becoming a thing in a lot of different areas of our life that we might not even realize. Um, Basically, the definition means applying elements of games to non-game contexts, such as workplace, productivity, marketing, education, or personal challenges. So there's a lot of different areas of our lives that gamification can be used in. But basically, the end goal is to get the audience engaged and turn something that seems like work into play. So this is using game mechanics. What are some examples of game mechanics? We have things like leaderboards, top 10 lists, badges, competitions, leveling up points, challenges, virtual currency, progress bars. These are all some techniques or game mechanics that can be used to make things more fun. So um, I don't know, the simplest example I can think of right now is I have a Fitbit on as we speak. I'm pretty bad towards my goal of 10,000 steps. I'm only at 3,000 right now, but I try to get 10,000 steps a day. And then I use the app on my phone to collect trophies and do competitions with the people that I work with here at Full Sail. We have the work week competition where we compete against each other, and it gets me out of my desk and walking around campus and exercising because it makes it fun to be a little bit competitive and to kind of level up and get different trophies and things like that. Cheyenne says, all I can think of was when Pokemon was released, everyone I know was going out and walking around the beach and neighborhood. Yeah, exactly. That's a great example. I used to use that one all the time. But I don't know how many people play that anymore, but it's not something that everybody's talking about for sure. Um, and then let's go back and do a throwback example that still is applicable today, I found out. Does anyone know the Monopoly game at McDonald's when that comes around? I think that started way back. I must have been like 10 or something when that started. I'm not gonna tell you how old I am now, but it was a long time ago. And I remember I didn't really like care for McDonald's all that much, but we would go to McDonald's so much more during that time because I was trying to fill up my little game board with the little stickers you peel off the cartons and trying to win prizes. And I'm not sure I ever won anything other than like a small fry, but it was fun to me, like to just play the game and like think I'm going to win. And definitely the marketing team at McDonald's hit a gold mine there. Seven says geocaching. Yeah, that's actually something I looked into too. I had the app for a little while where you do like some scavenger hunt type activities to go out and find things, and it makes exploring your neighborhood fun. Yeah, so these are some examples that I have. Um, you know, in I think in a lot of workplace and especially fitness. I mean, a lot of people don't enjoy working out, and I'm one of those people. So some people lack motivation to stay on the treadmill or go for a jog. So there's like a million gazillion fitness apps that have been trying to gamify fitness to turn it into a fun experience. I know there's one called Zombie Run, and you're like in a zombie video game, and it sends you on these missions where you have to run, and you're being chased by zombies, and you hear them in your headphones, and you get awards when you can complete a mission. And so something like that might motivate you. So what experiences have you guys had with gamification to get you interested or engaged with different products? I gave you guys some examples. You also heard about Pokemon Go. Sweatcoin. Oh, I've heard of that one. I think that's the one where you can earn money for every time you work out. And then I think you can cash it in, or like coins, and then you can cash it in for prizes or money, I think. Tell me if I'm wrong, Fernando. Okay, here's another simple example. This is in like a retail store. People never put the hangers back when they're done trying on their clothes, right? Um, or when they're in line waiting, take your hangers off. See if you can do it faster than the cashier, right? So that's a way to just kind of make something that the employees have to do, get the customers engaged while they're just standing waiting in line. Here's another example, kind of old school, nitrotype.com. I remember back in school and I had something similar to this, but it was very old school. Learning how to type and have the faster words per minute. They have like this nitrotype.com has a racing game where you can work on your words per minute. You can compete against other people. You can level up and get different cars and different rocket boosters and things like that, all while learning how to type faster and more efficiently. So that's another example. What else? Video break. Let's see. I'm going to show you a video now about gamification that gives you some other examples. I think they also talk about, yeah, they also talk about Zombie Run in there, but they kind of explain it in a nice way that is combines talking about motivation as well. So if you go to your materials section and click on gamification, please watch that video and then type done in the chat box when you're finished. All right, it looks like most of you guys are finished watching the video, so I thought that was a good way to just kind of summarize everything for us, get you thinking about maybe some other areas or examples that you can have in your own life of things that are gamified. So let's kind of move on and talk about the workplace and how can we mix work and play into the workplace specifically. Um, well, I don't know about any of you guys, but sometimes we've had boring jobs. I'm gonna stop for a second. Allison says she's not even halfway done. Raise your hand if you need more time to watch the video. Okay, I'm gonna wait a minute. Just put your hand down when you guys are finished so I know. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on. So if you didn't get to finish, I apologize. The ad is a little bit long, but you can always go back and watch it when we're finished today. So mixing work and play. Roxanne says, work and play doesn't mesh well in my job. They frown on it and autonomy does not exist. Yeah, and that is a similar thing. I think we can all think back to a job that we've had that play was actually discouraged. Like, what are you doing joking around and playing? Like, you need to be serious, you need to work, never stop working, right? And that doesn't really make that type of working environment pleasant, right? So companies are actually starting to pay people to gamify the things in the workplace. So for example, an assistant professor of management at the University of Colorado Denver Business School found that employees trained on video games learned more factual information, attained a higher skill level, and retained information longer than workers who learn less in less interactive environments. So I can think back to a job that I had, and my first day was training, and basically I sat in a room and they handed me a huge 400-page paper binder, and I had to sit there and read through it. Now, do you think I remembered a lot of that information? Probably not. I probably retained maybe like 2%, right? Now, if you were to, let's say, go in for your first day of work and you are playing a computer game where you're learning things about the company, you're learning how things work, and you're also like in type of a game environment where you're like earning points and it's more playful, well, probably going to be a better employee, right? So companies, not all of them, but there are some that are starting to recognize that, hey, if I make things more enjoyable for my employees, they're going to work harder and better and retain more information. Um, so this is definitely something that is becoming more important to some big companies. So talking about big, I know you guys can tell by now I love videos. You know where I spend my time on YouTube. But there's a clip I have in the chat box. I don't know if you guys, well, you probably don't. Dating myself here, but in the 80s, or maybe it was the early 90s, there's a movie called Big where a boy wants to grow up and be older, and he makes a wish on this machine and he turns into a man overnight. And then he has to run away from his home and go into the city, and he ends up finding a job at a toy company. So this is the clip where he's actually already working in the toy company and he's at a meeting. So it's quick. It's like I think like a minute. So go ahead and watch the big clip and then type done in the chat box when you're finished. All right, you guys are making me not feel old now that I see that you recognize this movie. I mean, who doesn't love Tom Hanks? Yeah. But anyway, so just a fictional example, but just sometimes fun is where creativity begins, and it makes you want to watch that movie again, Brianna. I know. Maybe it's on Netflix, but definitely a classic. All right, so mixing work and play. Is this really happening in real life? What are the benefits? Boost morale. Hey, it's fun. You like working with other people when you're having a good time doing something that's gamified. It raises productivity. Instead of just sitting down doing something that seems boring, making it fun makes you more productive. It increases your creativity. It's definitely something that helps you use your imagination or makes you use that part of your brain instead of just trying to memorize something. Fosters teamwork, making things fun together, making a competition out of something in the workplace can help you work better as a team, can optimize your work quality, reinforce desired behavior what managers don't want that, right? Promotes engagement. I'm sure some of you guys are thinking about like, oh, I wish that my boss could listen to this lecture because I would love to have these things in the workplace. And I know, like I said before, we can all probably think of a job where this was much needed and it wasn't utilized. Now let's talk about some companies that are rocking this idea out of the park. Obviously, at the top of the list here is Google. Their philosophy is literally to create the happiest, most productive workplace in the world. And they have offices all over the world that look like playgrounds. They have slides, they have ball pit rooms, all their conference areas are all decorated in different themes. They have, let's say, a Lego PlayStation. They do scavenger hunts. You can bring your pets to work. I was just in San Francisco over the summer, and my husband's friend used to work at Google, and he was telling me about it. And he said it's like working at a college campus. Like you everything is there that you need. You can bring your laundry to work. They do your laundry. You can eat all of your meals there. You can bring your dog. You have napping rooms if you need a break. They basically want to make their employees happy so that they can work when they're going to be productive, rest when they need to rest, and pretty much stay there and get things done and interact with other people and have group activities and team morale boosting things. So definitely a pretty cool place to work. And, Google comes up with some pretty creative, innovative things, right? That's because they foster this happiness and the employees enjoy working there. And that makes them better employees, right? So Google is definitely at the top of the list. Another example is Zappos. It used to, I think it's not just shoes now, it's all different shoes, things like that. It's a $1 billion online retail business. There's 1,400 employees, and it's been growing. But the owner or the CEO, he basically has what's called a Zappos culture. And he has 10 core values that are the values or the purpose of the company culture. And some of them are literally written like this. Creative, one says, create fun and a little weirdness. One says, do more with less. One says, deliver wow through service. So they definitely want their employees to be happy and productive. And it's interesting because they even have a technique in their hiring process. They have 2 interviews. So the first interview, it's to see if you meet the qualifications, see if you fit with the culture. And at the end of the second interview and the training, they pay you for the training, and then they offer you money if you quit. So they say, I'll give you $2,000 right now if you quit, because you're technically hired. Because they don't want people who are there for a paycheck. So if people take the money and go, then they're happy, because then they're like, this isn't someone that I want to work for this company. I want someone to work here that wants to be here, and things like that. So if you haven't become a Zappos insider by the end of the training, they're like, all right, just take the money and go. We don't want you then. Because, it's not about the extrinsic motivation, right? It's about that intrinsic motivation. And they realize that as a company. Cheyenne says, my manager is a tad bit overzealous when it comes to play. She reminds me of a Michael from The Office in a way. I'm not sure if that's a good thing. Yeah, I know. Sometimes forced fun is not helpful. Like, let's do a forced team activity, like sitting down and coloring books. And so sometimes it doesn't work and it fails miserably. But it really has to be like part of the culture and not just, we're going to do this forced activity so that make you guys have fun. It doesn't really work that way. It has to be part of the underlying vision and mission so that all parts of working at this place involve something fun, not just like these random forced fun events, right? Patagonia uses a similar model for their employees. So Stefan, check out the book, Let My People Go Surfing. Ooh, okay, I'm going to write that down. Awesome. I'll check that out. Thank you. Dropbox is another one that uses a lot of these kind of techniques. And basically, if you go to San Francisco and Palo Alto, any of these big tech companies kind of are all on board with these ideas. And I don't know if you guys have heard of Qualchucks, but I know I have a friend that works there, is the head of the company. And he actually had Dan Pink come to speak at his one of his like yearly, they have like a big conference thing where they learn like continuing education type thing. And I was very jealous that I did not get to meet Dan Pink because that would be awesome. Anyway, I'm off topic. Okay, so that's Dropbox. Another example, I have a video in the material section, but we're not going to watch it for the sake of time because it's almost 3 and I want to move on to our next topic. But if you want to check that out later, it basically just gives you a tour around the Dropbox headquarters and shows you all the cool stuff they have. They have a whole room with musical instruments so people can go and just like jam out in the middle of the day, get their motivation flowing, then go back to work and like come up with something cool. So they definitely encourage play in the workplace and encourage downtime, which is really awesome. I used to have a slide that talked about Full Sail in here, but Full Sail does this too. And we did a lot of interactive things during our training here when I first started. And we have walking desks in a lot of the office buildings. So I try to go on that as much as I can. We had a cardboard challenge day where we got into teams with random people and we did like cardboard challenges where we had to like come up with something out of recyclable materials and make something as a team and get rewards and things like that. It was fun. And just now we just had a Halloween costume contest and everyone got dressed up and we gave out prizes and we had like free face painting and snacks. And so Full Sail has definitely embraced this culture. I mean, I don't think there's any other university that offers a class called Psychology of Play. So not that I'm aware of. This is a first. So you guys are lucky. You get the fun psychology class, hopefully. But yeah, so now let's talk about conflict. That probably wasn't a very good segue after I talk about fun stuff. But conflict happens, and guess what? It can be costly to a company. So we need to work on our conflict skills. And you guys are going to work on a lot of group projects in this university. So you're going to be having lots of conflict because not everybody works in the same way. So we need to learn about strategies to be more effective when conflict arises. So basically, conflict is the transitional or transactional process between people who have perceived incompatible goals, scarce resources, or interference in achieving their objectives, which can happen when you are working with multiple people on something that you all have to complete together for a grade, right? Conflict's going to happen a lot. So we're going to practice conflict for a second here. I'm going to give us a little activity to do. And it's an ethical dilemma. So I can read it to you, but like the only problem is my little control panel is kind of in the way. So I'm going to see if I can read it, but feel free to read it yourself and mute me if you want for a second. But this is our ethical dilemma. We're going to do a little activity. All right. After being cut out of the wolf's belly, Red Riding Hood's grandmother sends Red back home by a different road. Grandmother doesn't mention that the road is rumored to have many dangers, especially a troll. Red Riding Hood is on her way back from grandmother's house when she passes a friend of hers, Goldilocks, who has just narrowly escaped the troll living under the bridge up ahead. Red and Goldilocks talk about the weather and wolves and bears, and they both head on their way, but Goldilocks does not warn Red about the troll she's about to face. As Red approaches the bridge with the troll under it, she finds an old beggar and offers him some bread. The beggar thanks her, but also does not say a word about the troll, and although he too knows it's there. Red Riding Hood then crosses the bridge, which is guarded on the far end by a knight, and he's drunk and passed out on his shift. Red Riding Hood is looking up at the clouds, not paying attention at all, and the troll, who's rather slow and loud, is able to sneak up on her, kill her, and eat her without anyone even noticing, not even Red. Your group's task is to determine who is to blame for Red's feat and in what order, with rank 1 being the character whose fault it is the most, and rank 6 being the character whose fault it is the least. Okay, so how we're going to do this. We're going to first, I'm going to unmute all of you. If you don't want to be unmuted, you're going to have to click on your little mute button to mute yourself, okay? I want you guys to decide who is the most at fault and who is the least at fault. We don't need to do all 6 in order, okay? And I'm going to give you 5 minutes to start with, and we'll see how this goes. So if you have music playing in the background or loud people, or if you're in a place where you can't talk, just go ahead and mute yourself if you can't participate. All right, here we go. Okay, hold on. There we go. All right, go ahead.
The grandmother is definitely the most to blame.
Yeah, the grandmother's the most to blame.
Yeah, I'll have to go with the grandmother.
I agree with the grandmother.
Grandmother.
I'd like to place a lot of blame on the drunk knight.
Mute myself.
Yeah, I mean, that's his one job is to watch the bridge.
Yeah, get the tank and blow his ass for a little bit. Put it in the box. I'm not participating. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about all this racket in the back. I'm at work. So if I recall correctly, she said we just picking who was the most to blame.
Most and least.
Yes.
Most and least.
I think the least is Red because no one actually told her to be afraid of or be careful of her.
I agree.
She may not have known that she was going to end up across the bridge anyways.
Well, believe it or not, I think her grandma is the most to blame.
Yeah, I agree. You seen this all? You tell I'm gone.
I say her grandma is the most to blame just because of the simple fact she told her to go a new route she ain't never been before. And plus, that's family. Family should always take care of family. So no matter how old she was, unless she had dementia, I don't know. And if she had dementia, how she know about that route anyway? I'm just saying.
I think the knight should be up pretty high up on the blame though, because if his job was to guard the bridge and he's drunk and asleep on duty, it's a big no-no.
Goldilocks should be high up on the blame too, because she didn't warn Red either.
Yeah, Goldilocks definitely should just eye on there for me because she just came from that bridge. That red's going that same direction, so she could have mentioned Red a warning about the bridge.
I think I'm still sticking with the knights. That troll could have been a new thing, and Grandma didn't know about it.
All right, you guys have a little bit less than a minute left. What are you going to decide?
I'll catch you check in the morning.
Hey, one more thing why I say grandma the most to blame. Because and not everybody else. Because if I saw you coming down a specific path, I'ma assume that you already know what's going on. You otherwise you probably wouldn't be going that way. See what I'm saying?
Also, we could
See?
blame Goldilocks herself because she knew the other way was safe. So why not just stick with the path she knew was
Exactly.
safe?
Yeah, there
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Goldilocks is my vote because she and Red are friends, so you would tell your friend, hey, careful up ahead, there's a troll. So not to go that way, there's a troll.
All right, the timer's up, so I'm going to meet you guys back for a second. Okay. So, do we have a clear, concise most and least? No. So, what are we experiencing here? We have a conflict. There's an ethical dilemma. We all have different values, life experiences, opinions that shape which character we think is at fault. You know, if you value family at the utmost importance, you might blame grandmother. Or if you value protection and authority and enforcement, you might value the knight, or, you know, it depends. So here we have different values of something that might be important to us, and depending on that, how we would answer this question. No clear answer. So we have a conflict. What do we do? Because technically, I gave you 5 minutes. You were unable to decide. So what do you do in this type of situation? When you're in a team, you have a conflict, and you have to come up with a decision. Fight to the death. No! James says, blame them all. Brianna says, vote. Jared says, vote. Come to a vote. Okay. So when you say come to a vote, you mean the most votes wins? Okay. All right. So let's try that. I have a poll set up. Let me see. Okay, so here, who is the most responsible for Goldilocks' death? I have 5 listed here. They're obviously not all 6. There's one missing. But I think most of these are ones that you guys would vote for. If not, type it in the chat box, and I'll try to figure it out. So go ahead and vote now. You can either go with what someone in the group said, you can have your own opinion and vote for what you think. I'll give you guys a minute. Okay, 70% of you have voted. If you haven't voted, go ahead and vote now. All right, I'm going to close the poll. All right, so we have 40% of you agree that the grandmother is who is truly at fault. So we are going to go with that because you guys brought up having the majority vote win. Now let's talk about who's the least responsible. So here's the poll again. So go ahead and vote for who you think is the least responsible. Not their fault. I mean, maybe a little bit, but they're the least. All right, 71%, that's the same number as last time that voted. Okay, so we have 55% of you think Red Riding Hood is the least at fault. She should have been warned by all the people along her way. Okay. So every time I do this, there's obviously different responses. And, you know, guess what? There's no right or wrong answer to this. It's not a quiz, it's not a test, right? It's just opinions. Now, some of you even think that you blame Red Riding Hood the most, right? It's the exact opposite. So in this situation, we all have different opinions, we have conflicts, and you have to come together and think about how are we going to solve this problem. Now, what we're going to do next is we are going to learn. Okay, first we're going to discuss. Sorry. So, did you agree with the leader's decisions? Because the leaders were the people, there was maybe only 4 or 5 people that were unmuted, and there's 29 of you in here. So there was 4 or 5 people that ended up kind of being the leaders and sharing their thoughts on the microphone. Did we all agree with each other? I think we can say a clear no. Okay, Stefan says, not entirely, I can accept their reasons. Yeah, but you guys could listen and say, okay, maybe. Did anyone notice any conflict when you guys were listening to people talking or in the chat box? When I do this in the classroom, we spend, you know, obviously we were at limited time in go-to training, but we spend a good like half an hour on this, and people get really heated about it, and they get really into debating their side, so conflict can happen. It's a little bit different in this type of platform, but maybe you were having some internal conflicts, like, no, it's not, you know. Yeah, Caden said maybe people weren't speaking their reasoning. Maybe they were kind of keeping to themselves their opinions. Brianna says, if allowed more time, I could see this getting serious. Yeah, exactly. So we could kind of predict what might happen. So people that didn't volunteer to be on the microphone, you were unmuted for whatever reason. Did your opinion change based on the group leader's discussion? So let's say you're at work, you can't unmute yourself. You weren't able to talk on the microphone. Maybe you really wanted to share your opinion. Did you end up agreeing with some of the things they were saying? No. Okay. And that can happen, right? And then you might feel frustrated, or you might feel like your voice isn't heard, or you might feel like technology isn't working, or I was at work and I couldn't do this, right? So you might be having strong feelings. And what happens when there's strong feelings like that when you're working within a team? Sometimes that can cause conflicts, right? All right, so we're going to skip the last question, move on to misconceptions about conflict. We tend to think that conflict is a negative thing, that we should avoid it. And it seems like we kind of did in this 5 minutes. Maybe if we went longer, we would have had a little bit more conflict. But we tend to think, okay, let's not rock the boat. Let's not make this into a big deal. Let's just get this activity done and over with and make a decision. Well, conflict isn't necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't have to be something that we avoid. Conflict is helpful because it can help us explore everyone's different opinions. We think that it represents a misunderstanding or breakdown in communication. No, not necessarily. You could have lots of communication and lots of effective communication, but you still might have conflicts as in what types of decisions to make. And we have the myth that conflict can be resolved to everyone's satisfaction. No. Not everyone's going to be happy with our choices for most and least at fault for our ethical dilemma, right? You might agree with one, not the other. You might have different opinions about both. Whatever it is, it's really hard to get a win-win-win-win-win situation. Someone's always going to, still feel like it wasn't fully resolved because we're all different, right? We can't all get everything we want, I guess. So this brings us to thinking about what is your conflict management style. So when you tend to be in a conflict situation, whether it was in the last 5 minutes when we did this or in a different situation in the workplace, think about how you tend to solve the problem or solve the conflict, okay? And we're going to take a little quiz to find out. And then we're going to compare it to our experiment with the ethical dilemma to see if it matches. So what I need you to do is take out a piece of paper and a pen, or you can write in the notes in your phone, but basically you're going to write down in a column the letters A through O. And then as we go through the questions, you're going to put next to each letter a number from the following key. So always is number 1, 2 is very often, 3 is sometimes, 4 is not very often, and 5 is rarely, if ever. Okay, so I'm going to read you the questions for each letter and you're going to score it accordingly. So just go with your gut response. I will also leave the questions up at the end if you miss something. Okay? Are we ready? Tell me when you guys have your letters down. Or sorry, it's easier if I say raise your hand if you're not ready. That's obviously easier. Okay, no one had, one hand raised. Okay. Allison and Roxanne, put your hand down when you're finished and we'll start. There's no notes. I was just saying if you wanted to write or put the letters in the notepad on your phone or somewhere if you don't have a piece of paper and a pen. That's what I meant. Or on your computer on a Word document. Okay, I think we're ready. All right, A. I argue at my Okay, let's practice reading. I argue my case with peers, colleagues, and coworkers to demonstrate the merits of the position I take. So score it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. B. I try to reach compromises through negotiation. C. I attempt to meet the expectations of others. D. I seek to investigate issues with others in order to find solutions that are mutually acceptable. E. I am firm in resolve when it comes to defending my side of the issue. F. I try to avoid being singled out, keeping conflict with others to myself. G. I uphold my solutions to problems. H. I compromise in order to reach solutions. I. I trade important information with others so problems can be solved together. J. I avoid discussing my differences with others. K. I try to accommodate the wishes of my peers and colleagues. L. I seek to bring everyone's concerns out into the open in order to resolve disputes in the best possible way. M. I put forward middle's positions in efforts to break deadlocks. N. I accept the recommendations of colleagues, peers, and coworkers. O. I avoid hard feelings by keeping my disagreements with others to myself. Okay, I'm going to put the questions up in case you missed any. Please put your hand up if you need more time. All right, everyone has their hand down, so I'm assuming that we're ready to score your responses. So what you're going to do is you're going to add up A, E, and G numbers and get a total, and that's going to be your number for shark. And then you're going to add up D, I, and L, get your total, and that's going to be L, and likewise going through the shark, owl, turtle, teddy bear, fox styles of conflict management. So get a score for all of those. All right, raise your hand if you need more time. And then just put it down when you're done so I know. Okay, I just realized I was muted. I don't know how long I was muted for. Oh my gosh. Sorry guys. I know you're probably like, what is happening? I guess I thought I pushed it and I didn't. Okay. So, oh my gosh, you guys are probably like, what's going on? It's quiet all of a sudden. Okay. So, I don't know if when I forgot to push unmute back. Sometimes I just think I didn't unmute myself and I just start talking. So, what we're doing now is we're scoring. So you're going to add up for A, E, and G your numbers, and that's going to give you a total for your shark score. And then for your owl, you're going to do D, I, and L, and the same for all of the letters. I don't know if we got that far. Did we get that far? You guys got all your scores? Okay. If you have two animals, that's okay. You can just pick one for the sake of the poll. That's possible. You just have two dominant styles. Whatever the lowest score is your dominant style. Hopefully you heard that. So the lowest score is your dominant. That's the one that you're going to vote on. Okay. So are we good now? Sorry about that. You missed and you voted the opposite. Okay. So our vote is probably going to be messed up. Let me see if I can redo the poll. No, it's closed. Okay. We'll just type in the chat box what your primary animal is, and we'll just have a little scrolling list. No problem. Okay. Owl, shark, turtle, teddy bear, shark. Ooh, we got a lot of sharks. Teddy bear, turtle. So far, I haven't seen any foxes or owls. Okay. All right. So you're probably wondering, what the heck does all this mean? Hopefully no one's stressed out. Isaac says shark, do, and fox. Oh, we have an owl. Okay. Awesome. Okay. What does this all mean? Okay, let's find out now. Shark. Let's talk to my sharks first. Sharks have a competing nature. They are assertive. They don't hesitate to use aggressive behavior when there is a conflict involved. Relationships are not a priority to them, so they don't care about anyone's feelings. They just want to solve the conflict and move on. They're very goal-oriented. They want to focus on the goal at hand and the end result, and that's it. They don't really care about all the little details. And they have a need to win. So they can be competitive. So it's appropriate to be a shark at times. You might be thinking, ooh, that doesn't sound very good. That might cause some more problems. Yeah, that's true. It's appropriate to be a shark in certain situations, but not all the time. So it's appropriate to be a shark when conflict involves personal differences that are hard to change. So if you, for example, if you think back to our scenario in the ethical dilemma, let's say I have 5 minutes and I say, I need on your piece of paper from your team a first at fault and a last at fault. In 5 minutes, go. Well, then, yeah, you might need to be a shark. You only have 5 minutes. You're in a deadline. Your shark might come out because you need to come up with a solution to give to the instructor, right? Okay. And you might not care about the relationships. You're like, I'm never going to see these people. They're just online. I don't know them, right? Yeah, so some people are saying that that's accurate for them. So that can happen when you're not really focused on the personal relationships of the people that you're having a conflict with. Like if you're on a boat and it's sinking and you need to figure out like how to find the lifeboats and life jackets, you know, and figure out a way to get rescued, you're probably not going to care about the relationships of the people that you're talking to. You're just going to be a shark and try to save your life, right? And conflict resolution, when it's urgent, it needs to happen quickly, shark style is appropriate. However, there are some cons, you know, because if you're a shark type personality, or what style of dealing with conflict in a let's say a team that you have to work on multiple projects with, then these are people that you're going to have a relationship with, right? And they might breed resentment because you're being a little bit too aggressive, and that might be something you want to lay off of if that's your dominant style. Okay? All right. So, pros and cons to each, of course. Then we have next the turtle. There's some turtles in here. Avoiding nature. This is actually the number one conflict management style of most people, of Americans. It's called avoidance. We like to avoid. Unassertive. That means we are not going to speak our mind and what our opinions are. We are going to kind of sit back and be passive. We don't like conflict. Turtles. I'm actually a turtle at times. Avoid conflict because you don't want to rock the boat. You'll be like, oh, I'm just going to hide over here. I do not feel comfortable when there's conflict. It's a withdrawing style. They like to hide and avoid, not really face the problem, so they're not really invested in what the outcome is. They'd rather just deal with it and move on with whatever it is. And the majority of Americans use this style. So obviously, pros and cons to each. It's appropriate to be a turtle. This can actually be helpful if there's little chance in satisfying what you want anyway. So let's say you're in a family environment and you're talking about who you're voting for, and your family has very strong opinions of who you're voting for, and you might have different opinions, and you're like, I'm not even gonna bother going there. I'm not gonna be a bother being a shark because they're not gonna change their mind. So I'm just going to hide my little shell and wait till it's over, right? So sometimes we like do that in family relationships or in situations like when we're maybe with a boss or something like that, and you know that there's no way that they're going to hear what you have to say, unfortunately. It's also appropriate to be a turtle when confrontation will hurt the working atmosphere. So when you think like, well, if I really say what I'm thinking, it's really going to change the working atmosphere, and I'm not willing to do that at this point. Or when others can more effectively resolve the issues, like, hey, if your ship is sinking and there is a Navy SEAL on the boat, and you're like, hey, I'm going to be a turtle and just sit back here and follow that guy or girl, right? And just do what they say, because that makes sense. Or when delaying the time of the conflict is necessary. So sometimes if you want to kind of stall for time, you being a turtle might do that, if that is what you're looking to do. So what are the pros of being a turtle? Well, it helps maintain relationships. Hey, if you're passive, you sit back, you don't say anything, people might want you to be in your team at times because they know that you'll just kind of go along with whatever they're doing, right? Especially sharks. Sharks like turtles. Cons, because turtles hate conflict, they often get walked all over and they don't let anyone know if there's a problem. So if you're in a project and you're a turtle and you're not really sharing what you're thinking, you might feel at the end like, man, that project was nothing like I imagined. Or, I had a conflict and I didn't agree with this, and, I didn't say anything, and now I feel like weird about it. So that's the turtle. Like I said, pros and cons to everything. All right, teddy bear. I think we had a couple teddy bears in here. They have an accommodating nature. So they're also unassertive like the turtle. So they kind of sit back. They don't act aggressively or assertively. They kind of are nice and sweet about things. And they're cooperative. They want to work together. What can we do, guys? Let's work together. I'll bring cookies to our meeting so that we're all happy. They have an emphasis on people and relationships. They're people pleasers. They basically want to just make sure there's harmony and conflict doesn't escalate, and they're peacemakers. Let's just all take a vote, that kind of thing. And then harmony and connection are very important, like I said. So when is it appropriate to be a teddy bear? Well, when the relationship is really important. So sometimes if you have one of those friends that's really a lot of drama, You might just be the teddy bear and appease them. Okay, let's go along with this person because I don't want to have to deal with the drama. I'm not sure if that's a great friend, but you never know. So if the relationship's really important, or if change is not that important, so you don't really mind what the outcome is, it's not important to you, or if the time is limited, so you don't want to bother arguing or getting really into it. So the positives of being a teddy bear: you have a rapport with the people. The relationships are maintained, right? The cons: well, you don't really, your goals are not your priority of sharing your opinions and things like that, so you often don't necessarily get the outcome that you might have wanted for yourself. All right, so we got the teddy bear. Now we're moving on to the fox. So the fox are compromisers. They're assertive and cooperative, so they are willing to speak their mind, share their opinions, but they also want to cooperate and make sure everyone else is able to share as well. They're willing to sacrifice personal goals when convincing others to do the same. So they're saying, I'm willing to do this if you're willing to do this, what I want. So we both get a little bit of what we want. Relationships are a concern for them. Oops. But they also value their own goals. So they want to, convince others like, hey, we all have our opinions, but how can we meet in the middle? So they do value the relationships and their goals at the same time. So it's appropriate to be a fox when it's an important issue and there's no simple solution. So compromising is kind of the only solution. Or when conflicting people hold the same rank or power. So you kind of want to feel like you're all on the level playing field. Or when there's all the time in the world. However, the pros of being a fox are that conflicts are removed, you come up with a solution, and the relationships basically remain intact because everyone kind of wins a little. However, the cons are because you're compromising, you're not really getting your ideal outcome because you're having to give up something and for the other person to get that 50-50 split. And then we have the owl. Brianna says, this sounds more like me, but for some reason I scored lower on shark than I did for fox. Okay. Well, lower, okay, so lower, so shark was your first. Okay, so you might alternate, or you might just, in certain situations be more like a fox and a shark, right? And then there might be some situations where your kind of shark conflict management style comes out in you. Usually that happens when it's something that you feel passionate about. Okay, so let's move on to the owl. Collaborating nature. Assertive and cooperative. So they like to work with people, but they also share their opinions in a respectful way. They view conflict as a problem that needs to be solved. So let's not focus on the conflict itself. Let's focus on how we're going to solve the problem to the best of the problem's ability and the people involved. All parties are equally valued, no matter what or who they are. So everyone's opinions and thoughts are listened to, and equally balances relationships and personal goals. So they care about the relationships of the people they're having a conflict with, but they also want to respect their personal goals about the opinion or about the conflict. So when is it appropriate to be an owl? Well, when you have various perspectives you're trying to merge and you really want to come with something that's very collaborative and not just, well, let's just share everything. You want it to be a kind of a group goal. The personal relationships are critical or crucial, so you want, to make sure you have good relationships with the people that you're working with. Or when peer conflict is present, focusing more on the problem and less on the conflict can be helpful. Or when there's no concern for time, because this is the style that requires the most amount of time. So positives of the owl: you have the potential for both parties to be happy. It's really, out of all of them, the only true win-win style. And the cons are that it requires the most time. out of all the styles, so that sometimes you don't have a lot of time, like in our sinking ship example. All right, so maybe this felt true for you, maybe not. It is a short quiz, so it's not 100% accurate, I would say, but at least you get an idea of the different styles of conflict management, so that next time you find yourself in a conflict, think about what the best strategy would be and how to handle that based on what we talked about today, which might be difficult if you have a pretty dominant style. So let's do a little example to see if you guys got the hang of this. So this is the orange example. There's one orange. There's person A is the shark. Person B is me. I'm neutral, okay? So we both want the orange. Who gets the orange in this case? If we have there's a conflict, we both want the orange. Who's going to get it? You can just go ahead and type in the chat box. Shark or me? Kaden says the shark. Shark, shark. Why is it yellow? I don't know. On my screen, it looks orange. It's not very ripe yet. Okay, you guys are right. The shark. The shark gets orange. I don't, because they are the competitive style. Okay, we both want the orange. The turtle and me. Who gets the orange? Correct. Me. Turtle's like, okay, here's the orange. I don't want it anyway, even if they really do. Sorry, turtle. Teddy bear. Who gets the orange? Okay, most of you got it right. Me, right? Teddy bears are worried about the relationship. Teddy bear wants to make me happy, even though the teddy bear wants orange, gives it to me to make me happy. So they lose, I win. What about the fox and me? Who gets the orange? All right, yeah, most of you got it. Split it in half. 50-50, we both get it. We share, we compromised. And last but not least, the owl and me. Who gets the orange? Remember, the orange isn't compromise, it's collaborate. So it's not going to be both. It's not going to be split down the middle. Let's see. Well, we're going to talk about it. The owl's going to say why. And I'm going to say, I would like to make jam with the peel. And the owl's going to say, I would like to eat the fruit. So we both get what we wanted. That's collaboration. Win-win. Boop. Any questions? Allison's like, I don't care about oranges. Just an example. All right, so that's pretty much it for today. If you want, like I said, you can go back and watch the video in the material section of the Dropbox. So if you need to save those links, but they'll also be emailed to you on the email that you registered with. If you didn't get a chance to listen to some of this lecture, the link will be posted by tomorrow at noon. I usually get it done before then. Remember, if you ever have any questions about assignments or things in the class, feel free to reach out to your instructor. All right, bye guys. Thank you so much. I don't see any questions, so feel free to log off.